Please note, the following presentation is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. Commercial roofing is a complex field involving significant financial investment and safety considerations. You should always consult with a licensed, insured, and qualified roofing contractor, architect, or building envelope consultant in your specific state before making any decisions regarding your property. This video is not a substitute for professional consultation. Imagine this for a second. You just signed off on a $250,000 check for a brand new, state-of-the-art TPO roof for your manufacturing facility. The contractors seemed great. They had a slick website, good reviews, and they gave you the second lowest bid. You feel like you made a savvy business decision. For 6 months, everything is perfect. Then the first big spring thunderstorm rolls through. Not a hurricane, not a tornado, just a heavy, sustained downpour. The next morning, your facility manager calls you before you've even had your first cup of coffee. His voice is panicked. You need to get down here now. You arrive to find 6 inches of standing water across a third of your production floor. Your new CNC machine is sitting in a puddle, its delicate electronics completely fried. Pallets of finished product, ready to ship to your biggest client, are now a soggy, unsalvageable mess. Your business is at a dead stop. You frantically call the roofing contractor. The number is disconnected. You dig out the paperwork and call the manufacturer to file a warranty claim. They send an inspector who spends 20 minutes on the roof, takes a few pictures, and a week later you get a certified letter. Claim denied. The report points to dozens of installation errors, improper seam welds, incorrect fastener patterns, and poor flashing details around the HVAC units. The 20-year warranty you were banking on? It was voided the second the contractor's crew packed up their trucks. You're left with a $250,000 failure, hundreds of thousands in collateral damage, and a business that's bleeding money every hour it's not operational. This isn't a scare tactic. This is a scenario that plays out in cities and towns across the United States every single week. Industry data suggests that a staggering 40% of all new commercial roofing systems will fail prematurely, not because of the materials, but because of errors during installation. 40%. Let that sink in. That means that for every 10 building owners in America who invest a fortune into protecting their asset, 4 of them are essentially setting their money on fire. They're buying a false sense of security that will crumble the first time it's truly tested. The question is, how do you ensure you're one of the 6 and not one of the 4? How do you, as a business owner, a property manager, or a board member, navigate one of the most expensive and critical capital expenditures you will ever face without being an expert in commercial roofing? That is exactly why I made this video. We are going to pull back the curtain on the commercial roofing industry in the USA. We're not going to talk about the difference between TPO and EPDM membranes, or the R value of polyiso insulation. That's surface level stuff. Instead, we are going to expose the 3 most common, most catastrophic, and most easily avoidable mistakes that lead directly to the nightmare scenario I just described. These aren't minor slip-ups. These are fundamental, process-level blunders that doom a roofing project before the first tear-off shovel ever hits the gravel. By the time you finish watching this, you will be armed with the insider knowledge that most contractors hope you never learn. You will be able to spot the red flags a mile away, ask the questions that separate the true professionals from the truck and a ladder crews, and take control of your roofing project, ensuring your massive investment actually protects your business for decades to come. I've spent years in this industry, from the consulting side to overseeing massive installation projects. And what I can tell you is this: the biggest risk to your building isn't the weather. It's the widespread lack of understanding about what a commercial roof actually is. Most people see it as a simple shield, a lid on a box. But that's a dangerous oversimplification. A modern commercial roofing system is a highly engineered, multi-component assembly. It's a dynamic, living part of your building. It has to manage thermal expansion and contraction, handle massive water loads, vent vapor pressure from inside, and withstand constant UV degradation, all while people are walking on it, servicing heavy equipment and dropping tools. It's more like the engine in your car than the paint job. If one small gasket is installed incorrectly, the entire engine can seize up. The same principle applies to your roof. A single poorly welded seam out of thousands can compromise the entire system and lead to catastrophic failure. The problem is, the entire process for buying a commercial roof in this country is fundamentally broken. It's set up to favor the lowest price, not the best outcome. Think about your process right now. You probably know you need a new roof. So you call 3 or 4 local companies, You tell them you have a 100,000 square foot roof and you need a price. They come out, walk the roof for 30 minutes, and a week later, 3 different quotes land in your inbox. They all look vaguely similar, maybe with different brand names for the materials. One is for $250,000, one is for $235,000, and one is for $198,000. What does almost every single business owner do? They're tempted by the lowest bid. Seems like the most fiscally responsible choice. You're saving over $50,000. But what you don't know is that the low bidder is counting on you not knowing what you're looking at. They've based their price on cutting corners you can't see. Maybe they're using fewer fasteners than the manufacturer requires, saving them $10,000 in material and labor. Maybe they're planning to skip the expensive primer on the metal flashing details. Or maybe they're using an inexperienced, low-wage crew that gets paid by the square foot, incentivizing speed over quality on those critical, time-consuming seam welds. You, the customer, have absolutely no way of knowing this just by looking at the quote. You're comparing apples to oranges, but they're all painted to look like apples. You're making one of the biggest financial decisions for your asset based on one number, the price, and that is the first step into the trap. So let's get into it. The 3 critical mistakes. And I'll tell you right now, the first and most devastating mistake has nothing to do with the contractor you hire or the materials you choose. It happens long before you even pick up the phone to get a bid. It's a foundational error in how you approach the project from day one. It's about shifting your perspective from buying a roof to specifying a solution. Most building owners are passive price takers. They ask the market, "What will you sell me a roof for?" And then they pick from the options presented. This is a losing strategy. The winning strategy is to become an educated buyer who dictates the terms. You need to define the exact scope of work, the specific materials, and the precise installation standards before you ever ask for a price. You create the detailed playbook, and then you ask contractors to bid on executing your playbook. This flips the power dynamic entirely. Instead of comparing vague, dissimilar quotes, you're now getting true apples-to-apples pricing on a clearly defined, high-quality project that you control. This single shift in approach is the difference between a 20-year asset and a 2-year liability. So, what does this actually look like in practice? How do you create this playbook without being a roofing expert? It starts with what I call the forensic audit of your existing roof. This forensic audit isn't just a quick walk around. It's a deep, investigative dive into the DNA of your building. Think of it like a full-body CT scan and a complete medical history before a major surgery. You wouldn't let a surgeon operate based on a 5-minute conversation in the hallway. So why would you let a contractor put $1 million new roof on your building, based on a quick glance from the parking lot and a measurement from Google Earth? You wouldn't. This process, this deep dive, is your single greatest defense against the #1 most costly, most devastating, and most common mistake in commercial roofing. And that is mistake number 1. Accepting a one-size-fits-all solution. This mistake is the silent killer of roofing projects. Seductive because it seems easy. It comes in the form of a simple, clean, often very attractive bid. We'll install a new 60 mil TPO roof system for X dollars. It sounds straightforward, sounds professional, but it's a trap, because that quote tells you nothing about your building. It's a generic solution copy-pasted from the last project, and it assumes your building is the same as every other flat roof box in the country. It's not even close. Let me tell you a story about 2 building owners. Let's call them Frank and Sarah. Both own nearly identical 50,000 square foot warehouses in the same industrial park in Ohio. Both of their roofs were about 18 years old and starting to show their age. Both knew they needed a replacement before the winter. Frank did what most people do. He called 3 local roofing companies and said, "I need a price for a new roof." All 3 came out, walked the roof for about 20 minutes, measured it, and a week later Frank had 3 quotes on his desk. They all proposed a basic white TPO roof system, installed right over the top of his existing roof. The prices were all within about 10% of each other. Frank, being a savvy businessman, negotiated the lowest bidder down another 5% and signed the contract. He felt great. He got a deal. Sarah took a different approach. She also called 3 companies, but instead of asking for a price, she asked them to tell her what her roof needed. She asked them to perform an evaluation. The first 2 guys did exactly what they did for Frank: a quick walk, a quick measurement, and a generic quote for a TPO roof. But the 3rd contractor, he was different. He spent 2 hours on her roof. He brought a core cutter and took 3 samples from different areas. He brought an infrared camera to scan for moisture trapped beneath the surface. He asked Sarah about the operations inside her warehouse. What was being stored? How much foot traffic was on the roof to service the HVAC units? He looked at the drainage, noting that one corner of the roof had significant ponding water. A week later, Sarah had 2 quotes that looked just like Frank's. But the third proposal was a detailed, multi-page report. It was a playbook. The core sample showed that her roof wasn't just 1 layer, but 2. The previous owner had done exactly what Frank was about to do. They put a new roof right over the old one. Worse, the infrared scan revealed that nearly 30% of the underlying insulation was saturated with water. It was a hidden swamp, trapped between 2 layers of rubber, silently rotting her roof deck and providing zero insulation value. His recommendation wasn't just a new roof. It was a full tear-off of both existing roofs, replacement of all the wet insulation and several damaged sections of the underlying wood deck, and installation of tapered insulation in the one corner to fix the ponding water issue. He then proposed a thicker, more durable PVC membrane, not TPO, because he learned that her warehouse stored plastics that gave off trace chemicals through the vents, and PVC is more resistant to those specific compounds. His price was 40% higher than the other 2 quotes. It was 35% higher than what Frank paid. It was a tough pill to swallow. But Sarah wasn't buying a price. She was buying a solution. She was buying certainty. She signed the contract. Fast forward 1 year. Frank's new roof started to fail. The added weight of the new system on the already heavy old roof, combined with the trapped moisture underneath, began to stress the building's structure. Seams started to pull apart. During the first major winter storm, an ice dam formed, and water poured into his warehouse, destroying $250,000 worth of inventory. The business interruption cost him another $100,000. The contractor? He pointed to a clause in the fine print saying he wasn't responsible for pre-existing conditions. The manufacturer's warranty was voided because the system was installed over a wet, unstable substrate. Frank's deal had turned into a financial catastrophe. He had to pay a second time to have both roofs torn off and replaced correctly. He paid twice for one roof. Sarah's roof? It was perfect. Her energy bills were lower thanks to the new dry insulation. She had 0 leaks. She had a rock-solid 20-year, no-dollar limit warranty from the manufacturer because the system was installed exactly to their specifications. Over the next 2 decades, her roof was an asset, a predictable, low-cost part of her building. Frank's roof was a liability, a constant source of stress and unexpected bills. Frank and Sarah's story is the perfect illustration of mistake number 1. Frank bought a product. Sarah invested in a process. The forensic audit is that process. It's what turns a roofer from a salesman into a consultant, a true partner. So what does this audit actually involve? It's a checklist of non-negotiables. First, core samples. A contractor must cut into your roof to see what's really there. How many layers? What kind of insulation? Is it wet? This is the single most important piece of data. Second, a moisture survey. Whether it's an infrared scan or a nuclear density gauge, they need to map out any trapped water. Installing a new roof over wet insulation is like putting a brand new tuxedo on a man who just fell in a swimming pool. It's pointless and causes huge problems down the road. Third, a structural assessment. What is the roof deck made of? Is it steel, concrete, or wood? Can it handle the weight of a new system? Are there signs of rust, rot, or sagging? The roof is only as strong as the foundation it's attached to. Fourth, a drainage analysis. Where does water go? Are the drains and gutters clear and properly sized? Is there ponding water 48 hours after a rainstorm? Poor drainage is a roof's worst enemy. It magnifies every tiny flaw and accelerates the aging process. And finally, a usage audit. What happens on and inside your building? Are there grease traps from a kitchen venting onto the roof? Chemical exhausts? Heavy foot traffic to service equipment? All of these factors determine what type of roofing material is truly right for you. A TPO roof might be great for a clean warehouse, but it could be destroyed in 5 years by the grease output from a restaurant. This forensic audit creates your project's playbook. It defines the scope of work. And once you have a clearly defined scope of work, you can then give that playbook to 3 different qualified contractors and ask them to bid on the exact same project. Now you're comparing apples to apples. You're comparing their skill, their labor, and their project management, not their ability to guess what your roof needs from the ground. Skipping this step is like flying a plane without a flight plan. You might take off, but nobody knows where you're going to land, and there's a very good chance it's going to be a crash. The generic one-size-fits-all bit is the most common mistake because it's the path of least resistance. It's easy for the contractor to produce and easy for the owner to understand. But the easy way is almost never the right way. So you've done the audit. You've resisted the temptation of the cheap, easy bid. You have a detailed, bulletproof playbook. You know exactly what your building needs. But now comes the moment of truth, choosing the team to execute that plan. And this is where the second catastrophic mistake happens. A mistake that can turn a perfect plan into a complete nightmare. It's not about finding the cheapest crew. It's about avoiding the predators who hide behind a low price. Let's call this predator Lowball Larry. You've seen him or someone just like him. He pulls up in a shiny truck, maybe a little too new, with a logo that looks like it was designed online for 20 bucks. He's confident, charismatic. He walks your roof, nods knowingly, and then sits down in your office, slides a single-page quote across the table, and hits you with the number. And that number, it's beautiful. It's maybe 20, even 30% lower than the other bids you've gotten. It's the number that lets you breathe a sigh of relief. It's the number that makes you think, finally a break. A contractor who isn't trying to gouge me. He tells you exactly what you want to hear. We've got a crew ready to start Monday. We use all the same materials as the big guys. Don't worry, we're fully insured. He shakes your hand, looks you in the eye, and you feel like you just made the smartest financial decision of the year. But what you've actually done is invited a wolf into your henhouse. You've just fallen for the second great mistake in commercial roofing. Hiring based on price instead of value. The low price is a weapon, and it's aimed directly at your biggest vulnerability, your budget. Every business owner is under pressure to control costs. But Larry isn't saving you money. He's just hiding the true cost in places you won't discover until he's long gone, and his check has cleared. So how does he do it? Where does that 30% savings actually come from? It comes from 3 places, and each one is a ticking time bomb on your roof. First, the materials shell game. Larry told you he uses the same materials as everyone else. That's a carefully crafted lie. Let's talk about a common single-ply roofing material, TPO. The industry standard for a quality installation is typically a 60 mm membrane. That's 60 thousandths of an inch thick. It's durable, it's robust, it can handle foot traffic, hail, and the brutal UV rays of the sun for decades. But there's also a cheaper 45 mm version available. To the untrained eye, they look identical. But that 45 mm membrane has a significantly shorter lifespan and is far more susceptible to punctures. Larry saves a fortune by using the thinner material. And you'd never know the difference until your roof starts failing 10 years ahead of schedule. But it gets worse. It's not just the membrane. It's the fasteners, the plates, the adhesives, the insulation. A proper specification might call for fasteners every 12 inches in the field of the roof and every 6 inches around the perimeter, where the wind uplift is strongest. Larry knows you're not going up there with a tape measure. He'll put them every 18 or 24 inches. He's just saved thousands of dollars on screws. But the first time a major storm rolls through, with winds gusting to 60 or 70 miles per hour, that wind will get under the membrane and start to peel your roof back like the lid on a tin can. We see it every single year. A business owner who thought they saved $30,000 on their roof now has $100,000 in water damage, ruined inventory, and is completely shut down for repairs. Their savings just became the most expensive mistake of their life. The second place Larry cuts corners is the most dangerous. His labor. The professional crew that gave you the higher legitimate bid has a team of trained, certified installers. These are craftsmen who have spent years learning the trade. They're drug-tested, background-checked, and most importantly, they are employees covered by comprehensive workers' compensation and liability insurance. They are an asset. Larry doesn't have an asset. He has the liability. His crew is often a collection of untrained day laborers, picked up that morning, paid cash under the table. They don't have safety training. They don't have health insurance. They certainly don't have workers' compensation insurance under his sham company. He might show you a piece of paper, a certificate of insurance, but it's often fraudulent or a policy so full of exclusions it's worthless. Now imagine this scenario. One of his untrained workers makes a mistake. Maybe he improperly handles a torch on a modified bitumen roof and starts a fire. Or maybe he just takes a wrong step and falls off the edge of your building. Suddenly, you don't just have a roofing project. You have an OSHA investigation, a fleet of emergency vehicles, and a team of lawyers at your door. And when they discover that the contractor you hired had no legitimate insurance, Who do you think they come after? They come after the deepest pockets. They come after you, the property owner, your business, your assets. That 30% you saved is now a rounding error compared to the multi-million-dollar lawsuit you're facing. All because you hired the cheapest guy. Finally, we have Larry's grand finale, his greatest magic trick, the vanishing warranty. He'll proudly offer you a 10-year contractor's warranty. It looks official. It's printed on nice paper. He signs it with a flourish. It is, without a doubt, the most worthless piece of paper you will ever hold. It's a promise from a ghost. Because the first time you call that number on the warranty 3 years from now when the first major leak appears, you'll get a disconnected message. The company, Larry's Reliable Roofing LLC, no longer exists. It was a shell, dissolved the moment he finished a handful of jobs. He's already 2 states over, operating under a new name with a new shiny truck, pulling the same scam on another unsuspecting business owner. A real warranty, the kind that comes from a legitimate contractor, is a no-dollar limit or NDL warranty. This isn't from the contractor. It's from the manufacturer of the roofing materials, the multi-billion-dollar corporation like Carlisle, GAF, or Firestone. To even be able to offer you this warranty, a contractor has to be factory certified, which means they've been vetted, trained, and trusted by the manufacturer. And when the project is done, the manufacturer sends their own independent inspector to your roof to verify that every single detail was installed to their exacting specifications. If it passes, they issue the warranty. This means that if anything fails due to materials or workmanship, the multi-billion-dollar corporation is on the hook to fix it, not some guy who's changed his phone number. That is the difference between value and price. The value is the peace of mind of a 60 mm membrane. The value is the safety of a properly insured, professional crew. The value is the security of a manufacturer's ironclad NDL warranty. The low price is a mirage. It promises savings but delivers only risk, stress, and catastrophic failure. So you've learned. You've dodged the lowball Larrys. You've thrown out the bids that seem too good to be true. You're now looking at 3 proposals from 3 reputable, established commercial roofing contractors. They all seem professional. Their prices are all in the same ballpark. You're safe now, right? Wrong. Buried deep inside those legitimate-looking proposals is the third and most deceptive mistake of all. It's not about a predator. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of what your building actually needs. It's a mistake of omission, and it's one that even the most well-intentioned contractors can lead you into, costing you a fortune in hidden energy costs and premature roof failure. This brings us to the second colossal mistake, and it's a trap that's incredibly easy to fall into. Mistake number 2 is focusing on the roof membrane, not the roof system. Let me ask you this. When you think about getting a new car, do you only think about the paint color? Of course not. You think about the engine, the transmission, the suspension, the chassis. You think about whether you need a truck for hauling or a sedan for commuting. The paint is just the final, protective, aesthetic layer. But the performance, the longevity, the entire function of the vehicle depends on the system underneath. Your commercial roof is exactly the same. The membrane, that top layer of TPO, EPDM, or PVC, is just the paint job. It's what you see. It's what most contractors talk about because it's easy to sell. They'll say, "We use the best 60 mm TPO from GAF," or "This Firestone EPDM has a 30-year warranty." And you, the building owner, start comparing quotes based on membrane thickness and brand names. But the tragic truth is, you could have the most expensive, advanced membrane in the world, and if the system underneath it is wrong for your building, your roof is destined for a catastrophic, premature failure. The membrane is the hero of the story, but the system is the entire universe it lives in. And if that universe is hostile, the hero doesn't stand a chance. Let me tell you about a facility manager named Mark in Chicago. Mark runs a massive refrigerated warehouse, a cold storage facility. We're talking acres of roof over millions of dollars of frozen food. His old built-up roof was failing, and the stakes were astronomical. A single major leak could compromise an entire section of inventory. So Mark did his due diligence. He got 3 quotes from reputable local contractors. And all 3 of them came in and talked about one thing, the membrane. Contractor A pushed a top-of-the-line white PVC roof, talking about its chemical resistance and heat-welded seams. Contractor B advocated for a thick, black EPDM system, emphasizing its durability in the harsh Chicago winters. Contractor C proposed a brilliant white TPO, focusing on the energy savings from reflecting the summer sun. Mark, being a smart guy, compared the specs, the warranties, and the prices. He ended up choosing the TPO system because the contractor gave him a great price, and the promise of lower cooling bills seemed like a huge win. The crew came in, they worked hard, and the installation of that white TPO membrane was flawless. The seams were perfect. The details were clean. From the outside, it was a textbook installation. Mark felt a huge wave of relief. Problem solved. For about 18 months. Then, the energy bills started to do something weird. They were going up, not down. The massive freezer compressors were running harder and longer than ever before. Mark was baffled. He had a brand new, highly reflective roof. His bills should be plummeting. He called the contractor, who came out, inspected the membrane and said, "Looks great to me, Mark. Not a leak in sight." But the problem wasn't on the outside. It was brewing within. You see, a cold storage facility is a unique environment. It has a massive, constant temperature and humidity differential. Inside, it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit and bone dry. Outside, in a Chicago summer, it can be 95 degrees and dripping with humidity. Physics dictates that this massive difference in vapor pressure will try to equalize. Warm, moist air from the outside is constantly trying to force its way into the building. But here's the killer part no one talked about. The process of keeping the inside at 0 degrees creates an enormous amount of vapor drive from inside the building, pushing outwards. All the moisture from people breathing, from equipment, from tiny air gaps, gets drawn towards the coldest surface it can find, which is the underside of the roof deck. The contractor Mark hired, by focusing only on the TPO membrane, installed a standard insulation package with no thought given to vapor drive. He didn't install a vapor barrier. Over the next 2 years, massive quantities of moisture from inside the building were pushed up into the roof assembly. The insulation became a giant frozen sponge. Its R value, its ability to insulate, plummeted to almost zero. That's why the energy bills were skyrocketing. The freezers were essentially trying to refrigerate the entire city of Chicago. But it gets so much worse. That trapped, frozen moisture began to thaw and condense on the metal roof deck. And, critically, on the metal fasteners holding the entire system together. They began to rust. Silently, invisibly. The catastrophe came during a particularly nasty winter storm with 70-mile-per-hour winds. A huge section of that perfectly installed TPO roof, its fasteners rusted through and its insulation a waterlogged mess, was peeled back by the wind like the lid on a tin can. The damage was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention the compromised inventory. And the warranty on the TPO membrane? Absolutely worthless. The membrane itself didn't fail. The system failed. The contractor was long out of business, and Mark was left holding the bag for a second, even more expensive roof replacement in less than 5 years. Mark's story is a brutal lesson in the difference between a membrane and a system. So how do you avoid it? You have to change the conversation. You need to become the expert on your own building and force your contractor to think like an engineer, not a salesman. Stop asking, "What membrane are you using?" and start asking, "What system are you proposing, and why is it specifically designed for my building's unique needs?" Here are the layers you need to discuss. First, the roof deck. This is the foundation. Is it steel, concrete, or wood? What's its condition? Any contractor who doesn't do a thorough inspection of your deck before talking about anything else is a major red flag. Second, and this is what destroyed Mark's roof, the vapor barrier. You need to ask, given my building's use, interior humidity, and our local climate, do we need a vapor barrier? If you run a data center, a manufacturing plant with steam, an indoor pool, a commercial kitchen, or a cold storage facility, a proper vapor barrier isn't a luxury. It is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity. It's the one component that can single-handedly prevent a catastrophic internal failure. Third, the insulation. Don't just talk about R value. Talk about the type of insulation. Polyisocyanurate, or polyiso, is the most common. But does it have the right compressive strength for the amount of foot traffic and equipment you have on your roof? Are you considering expanded or extruded polystyrene, which handle moisture better in certain applications? A great contractor will talk about layering the insulation and staggering the seams to prevent thermal bridging. Tiny gaps that bleed energy. Fourth, the cover board. This is the unsung hero of the roof system. It's a thin, dense board that sits on top of the soft insulation and directly underneath the membrane. It does two critical things. It protects the insulation from being crushed by foot traffic or pulverized by hail, and it provides a perfectly smooth, stable surface to adhere the membrane to. Skipping the cover board or using a cheap, flimsy one is like building a house on a foundation of sand. It will fail. And finally, after you've designed the entire system from the deck up, then and only then do you talk about the membrane. Is TPO right for your southern climate because of its reflectivity? Is EPDM a better choice for your northern warehouse because of its proven flexibility in extreme cold? Is PVC necessary because your restaurant vents grease and oils onto the roof, which would destroy other membranes? The membrane is the final piece of the puzzle, chosen to complement the system, not the other way around. Choosing the right system is about playing chess, not checkers. It's about seeing the whole board and understanding how every single piece works together. But even with the perfect system designed, there's another mistake. A silent killer that happens during the installation itself that can render all that careful planning completely useless. It's a mistake that's invisible to the untrained eye until it's far, far too late. This mistake is the #1 reason why brand new commercial roofs fail within the first 5 years. It's called improper substrate preparation, and it's the equivalent of building a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. It doesn't matter how incredible the materials are, how advanced the membrane is, or how skilled the crew seems to be. If the surface they are installing that new roof on is not perfectly prepared, the entire system is doomed from day one. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a classic car you want to restore. It has some rust spots, some old peeling paint, and a layer of grime. Would you just spray a new expensive coat of paint right over all of that? Of course not. It would look terrible, it wouldn't stick, and it would start to peel and bubble within weeks. You would painstakingly sand it down to bare metal, treat the rust, clean every square inch, and apply a special primer to ensure the new paint forms a permanent, unbreakable bond. The quality of the final paint job is 90% dependent on the quality of the prep work. Your commercial roof is exactly the same. The substrate, which is just the industry term for whatever surface the new roof is being applied to, is your canvas. It could be a metal deck, a concrete slab, or layers of old insulation and previous roofing. And if that canvas is wet, dirty, or structurally unsound, your new multi-$100,000 roof is just a temporary cover, waiting to fail. The most catastrophic sin of substrate preparation is moisture. Trapped moisture is the silent assassin of commercial roofing. Contractors who are cutting corners or just moving too fast will often roof directly over existing insulation, or decking that is damp or outright saturated with water from old leaks. To the building owner, everything looks fine. The new white reflective roof is installed, it looks beautiful, and the active leaks are gone. For a moment. But then the sun comes out. That big, beautiful flat roof starts to bake in the summer heat. The trapped water underneath has nowhere to go. It turns into water vapor, expanding with incredible force. It pushes up against the brand new membrane, creating blisters. First they're small, then they grow. You might see what looks like strange bubbles or small hills forming on your roof. That is your roof system tearing itself apart from the inside. The pressure can become so immense that it rips seams open or pulls the membrane away from its fasteners. And when it finally lets go, you don't have a small drip. You have a catastrophic failure. All that trapped water is released at once, flooding your facility. The second sin is contamination. Dirt, dust, oils, loose gravel, old degraded roofing materials. Anything that gets between the new roof system and the substrate acts as a bond breaker. It's like trying to put a piece of Scotch tape on a dusty table. It simply won't stick. An adhered roofing system relies on a powerful chemical bond with the substrate. Without a pristinely clean surface, that bond will never fully form, leading to sections of the roof peeling back in high winds, a phenomenon roofers call wind uplift. And it can be absolutely devastating. Let me tell you about a distribution center manager in Illinois. Let's call him Mark. Mark had a massive aging built-up roof that was leaking in a dozen places. He got 3 bids for a new TPO roof system. 2 were around $200,000. The third was $160,000. The low-bid contractor, we'll call them speedy roofers, promised to get it done in record time. They talked a big game about their top-of-the-line membrane and their fast crew. When Mark asked about the old roof, they said, "No problem, we'll just do a recover. We'll add a new layer of insulation and put the new roof right on top. Saves you the cost of a full tear-off." It sounded great. A faster, cheaper solution. Speedy roofers got the job. They showed up, did a quick sweep of the loose gravel, and started laying down the new insulation boards right over the old, grimy asphalt roof. They didn't do a moisture scan. They didn't take any core samples to see if the existing insulation below was wet. They just covered it all up. Out of sight, out of mind. They installed the new white TPO membrane, welded the seams, and it looked perfect. Mark was thrilled. He saved $40,000 and his leak problems were over. For about 6 months, the first real summer heat wave arrived. Temperatures on the roof surface soared past 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Deep within the old buried roof system, pockets of trapped moisture from years of old leaks began to vaporize. Blisters started to form. Mark's maintenance guy noticed them, but Speedy Roofer said it was normal, that they would settle down. They didn't. They grew. One August afternoon, a severe thunderstorm rolled through. The wind howled and the rain came down in sheets. A gust of wind, estimated at over 60 miles per hour, caught the edge of a section of the roof where the membrane hadn't properly adhered to the dusty, contaminated surface below. It was like a parachute opening. The wind got underneath it and in a matter of seconds, ripped a 40 by 60 foot section of the brand new roof right off the building, dumping a biblical amount of rain directly onto pallets of high-value inventory. The damage was well over $100,000. When Mark filed a claim with the roofing manufacturer, they sent an inspector. The inspector took one look, took a core sample, and immediately voided the warranty. The failure wasn't due to a defective material. It was a textbook case of improper installation over a contaminated and wet substrate. Speedy Roofer's phone number was disconnected. Mark's $40,000 savings ended up costing him his job, and the company had to pay for another full tear-off and replacement roof, this time for $220,000. So how do you prevent Mark's story from becoming your story? You become the educated consumer. You manage your contractor by asking the right questions before you sign anything. First, insist on a comprehensive roof evaluation that includes a detailed substrate analysis. Ask them, what is your specific process for evaluating the condition of my existing roof deck and insulation? Second, demand a moisture scan. Ask what technology they use. Is it an infrared scan, which shows temperature differences caused by wet insulation? Or is it a nuclear density gauge, which provides precise moisture readings? Ask to see the report, the map of the roof showing any wet areas. And then ask the most important question. What is your plan for addressing any moisture you find? The only acceptable answer is, we will mark out all wet areas, and they will be completely torn out and replaced with new, dry materials before any new roofing is installed. Anything less is a massive red flag. Third, ask about core samples. A good contractor will take several core cuts from your roof to physically see the layers and their condition. It's like a biopsy for your building. It tells them exactly what they're dealing with. Finally, for any adhered system, ask about their process for cleaning and priming. How will they ensure the surface is absolutely pristine to achieve a maximum bond? Will they be power washing? Using special solvents? What specific primer will be used to promote adhesion? If they can't answer these questions with confident, specific detail, they are not the contractor for you. The substrate is the foundation. It's the single most important factor in the longevity of your roof. Yet it's the one that gets covered up and hidden forever once the job is done. Getting it wrong doesn't just lead to a leak, it leads to a total premature failure of the entire system. But even if you get the system designed perfect, and you ensure the substrate is clean, dry, and sound, there's a third mistake. This one happens in plain sight every single day on job sites across America. It's a mistake of detail, of craftsmanship, and it's where 90% of all roof leaks begin. It's not the big, flat, open areas of the roof that fail first. It's the edges, the corners, and the transitions, and we're going to expose exactly what to look for next. Let's start with the most common point of failure: flashings. Specifically, where the flat plane of your roof meets a vertical wall. This could be a parapet wall, the side of a taller adjacent building, or the wall of a large HVAC unit. A cheap or lazy roofer will take the roofing membrane, run it up the wall a few inches, and then nail a piece of metal, a termination bar, right through the membrane and into the wall. Then they'll smear a line of caulk along the top and call it a day. From the ground it might even look clean, but you've just paid for a ticking time bomb. Think about it. That single bead of caulk is now the only thing standing between every drop of rain that runs down that entire wall and the inside of your building. We're talking thousands of gallons of water over the life of the roof, all being held back by a thin line of sealant that will start breaking down from UV exposure in just a few years. The fasteners they drove through the membrane have created dozens of tiny holes. And because that metal bar is fastened directly to the wall, every time the building settles or shifts with temperature changes, it pulls and stresses that membrane, elongating the holes and tearing at the seal. This isn't a question of if it will leak, it's a question of when. And the when is always sooner than you think. Now let's look at how a true professional handles that same transition. They don't just rely on a bead of caulk. That's amateur hour. A real craftsman understands that you need a multi-layered, mechanical defense system. First, they run the membrane up the wall, same as the other guy, but they adhere it properly, ensuring a smooth, watertight transition from horizontal to vertical. Then they install their termination bar. But that's just step one. The real magic, the real craftsmanship is what happens next. They cut a groove called a reglet into the wall itself just above the termination bar. They then fabricate a second piece of metal, a counterflashing, that is designed to be tucked into that groove and then folded down over the termination bar. Do you see the difference? It's night and day. Water running down the wall now hits that counterflashing, is directed out and over the termination bar, and safely onto the roof surface. The primary seal, the termination bar and membrane, is now completely shielded from direct weather, from UV rays, from everything. The seal inside the reglet is a secondary defense, also protected. It's a system built on physics, not just a hopeful smear of sealant. Takes more time, takes more skill, costs a little more in labor. But this detail alone is the difference between a roof that lasts 7 years and one that lasts 27. It's the difference between peace of mind and a frantic call to a roofer every time there's a heavy rain. This is mistake number 2 in its purest form, ignoring the critical details. It's allowing a contractor to focus on rolling out the big, easy field sheets while butchering the parts that actually keep the water out. And it doesn't stop at walls. Let's talk about penetrations. Every commercial roof has them. Plumbing vents, electrical conduits, exhaust fans, HVAC curbs. Each one is a hole. A necessary hole, but a hole nonetheless. And each hole is a potential leak. The lazy roofer's approach? Again, it's the caulk gun. They'll cut a rough hole in the membrane, slide it over the pipe, and then pump a mountain of sealant around the base. They call it a mastic pocket or a pitch pocket, but what it really is a maintenance nightmare. That sealant will shrink, crack, and pull away from the pipe. Debris will collect in it. It will need to be redone every couple of years, and if you forget, you're guaranteed a leak right into the space below. The professional approach is surgical. For a simple pipe, they don't use caulk as the primary seal. They use a prefabricated flashing boot. This is a cone-shaped piece of the same material as your roof membrane, designed to slide over the pipe. The roofer then uses a heat gun or a specialized solvent welder to literally melt and fuse the base of that boot directly to the roof membrane. It's not glued. It's not sealed. It is welded. It becomes a single, seamless, monolithic piece of roofing. There are no gaps. There are no edges for water to get under. The connection is as strong and as waterproof as any other part of the roof. It's permanent. For larger penetrations like an HVAC unit, a pro builds a curb. But not just any curb. They build it to a specific height, usually a minimum of 8 inches above the roof surface. Why? Because they know that in a heavy downpour, water can pool or pond on a roof before it drains. If your curb is only 4 inches high, that ponding water can just spill right over the top. An 8-inch curb ensures the base of your multi-thousand-dollar HVAC unit stays high and dry. Then they wrap that curb like a gift, meticulously flashing the membrane up the sides, heat welding every corner into a perfect, seamless pig's ear fold that sheds water away. There is no caulk. There are no shortcuts. It is a fortress built around the most vulnerable part of your roof. When you see a roofer spending an hour on a single pipe flashing, or half a day on one HVAC curb, they're not slow. They're saving you from a catastrophic failure down the road. They are honoring the craft. Finally, let's look at the ultimate detail, the one that separates the masters from the masses, the edge of the roof. The perimeter. This is where your roof meets the sky. It's also where it takes the most punishment from wind. A poorly secured roof edge is like an open invitation for a hurricane to peel your entire roof off like the lid on a can of sardines. The cheap and common method is to simply nail the edge metal, or coping cap, directly through the top. You'll see the exposed nail or screw heads running all along the perimeter of the building. Well, every one of those fasteners is a hole that goes directly through the metal, through the membrane, and into your building structure. Each one is sealed with a tiny dab of something that will fail. It's madness. You've just installed thousands of potential leaks on the most critical part of the roof. The world-class roofer would never do this. They use a system that has no exposed fasteners. It's a two-part system. First, they install a continuous cleat, a piece of metal that is anchored securely to the wall. Then, the finished coping cap, the piece you actually see, is designed to snap down onto that cleat. It's held in place by tension and mechanical physics, not by a prayer and a screw. The result is a perfectly clean, unbroken metal surface. There are 0 holes, 0 entry points for water. It can withstand hurricane-force winds because the wind can't get a grip on it. It's an elegant, brilliant, and incredibly effective solution. It costs more. Of course it does. It requires precision metal fabrication. But ask anyone who has ever had their entire roof ripped off in a storm if they would have paid a little extra for a properly secured edge. The answer is always yes. These details, the flashings, the penetrations, the edge metal, they are the language of roofing. A building owner might not know what a reglet or a cleat is, but you can see the results. You can see the difference between a roof that looks like it was sealed with a caulk gun and one that looks like it was engineered. So when you're inspecting a roofer's work, or looking at a quote, don't just look at the big square footage price. Ask them to show you, in detail, how they handle a wall flashing. Ask to see a picture of their standard pipe flashing detail. Ask if their coping cap uses exposed fasteners. Their answers will tell you everything you need to know. It will tell you if you're hiring a laborer who just rolls out material, or a craftsman who is building a 20-year shield for your assets. Because ignoring these details isn't just a mistake. It's the setup for the most expensive problem of all, one that most building owners never even see coming. And that most expensive problem isn't a leak. It isn't a tear in the membrane or a piece of flashing that comes loose. It's something far more insidious. It's the sound of silence. It's the phone call that goes unreturned. It's the discovery 5 years after you've spent $250,000 that your ironclad, 20-year, no-dollar limit manufacturer's warranty is completely and utterly worthless. You're holding a phantom warranty, a piece of paper that promised a fortress but in reality is just a ghost. This is mistake number 3. Ignoring the manufacturer's specifications so precisely that you void the warranty before the final nail is even driven. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a business owner. Let's call him David. David owns a mid-sized manufacturing facility in the Midwest. He's sharp. He knows his numbers. When his old roof finally gave out, he did everything right. He got 3 detailed quotes. He checked references. He didn't just pick the cheapest guy. He picked the contractor who seemed the most professional, the one who promised a top-of-the-line, single-ply TPO roofing system from a major, reputable American manufacturer. The crown jewel of the deal was the 20-year NDL warranty. For David, this wasn't just a roof. It was peace of mind. An asset, not an expense. He signed the contract, the crew showed up, and in 2 weeks he had a beautiful new white reflective roof. It looked perfect. For 3 years it was. Then, after a particularly vicious winter storm with high winds, a corner seam started to peel back. Just a little bit. No big deal, David thought. I've got the best warranty money can buy. He called his contractor. Voicemail. He called again. No answer. Finally, he called the manufacturer's warranty department directly, confident they would solve his problem. He sent them the photos, the contract, the warranty certificate. And then he got the email. The one that every building owner dreads. Dear Mr. David, upon review of the installation file for your property, we found that the system was not installed to our technical specifications. As a result, the warranty was never officially issued by our office. We regret to inform you that we cannot honor this claim. David's stomach dropped. How? How could this be possible? He had the paperwork. He saw the crew working. The truth is, the warranty was dead on arrival. It was voided day by day, shortcut by shortcut, by a contractor who knew how to make a roof look good, but not how to make it last. So where did it go wrong? It wasn't one big thing. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a series of tiny, invisible deviations from the manufacturer's rulebook. That rulebook, the spec sheet, isn't a set of friendly guidelines. It's a legally binding contract. Break one rule and the whole deal is off. Let's start with the fasteners. Every commercial roof is an engineered system designed to fight a constant battle against wind uplift. The manufacturer provides a specific fastener pattern based on your building's height, location, and wind zone. The corners and the perimeter of the roof experience exponentially more wind force than the center, or the field, of the roof. Therefore, the specs demand more fasteners spaced closer together in these critical zones. For example, the spec might call for one fastener every 12 inches on the perimeter, but only one every 18 inches in the field. What did David's contractor do? He used the field pattern across the entire roof. Why? To save a few cents on every fastener and a few seconds on every screw. It saved him maybe $1,000 total. But in that high wind storm, that corner, which should have had double the fastening power, acted like a parachute. The wind got under it and the peeling began. The warranty was voided by a handful of missing screws. Now let's talk about the seams. That brilliant white TPO membrane comes in large rolls, and the seams are welded together with a hot air gun. This creates one continuous monolithic sheet. But that weld is a precise chemical and thermal process. The manufacturer's spec dictates the exact temperature and speed for the robotic welder, based on the ambient air temperature and humidity of that specific day. A crew working on a cool, overcast morning in Ohio needs a different setting than a crew on a hot, humid afternoon in Florida. David's crew? They used the same eyeball setting all day, every day. Some of their welds were perfect, but others, done late in the afternoon when the temperature dropped, were cold welds. They looked sealed, but they never achieved a full molecular bond. To a casual observer, it's invisible. But to a trained inspector with a seam probe, it's a glaring failure. It's a ticking time bomb, guaranteed to split open under the stress of thermal expansion and contraction over a few seasons. Another checkmark on the list of reasons to void the warranty. And what about the details? The flashings, the corners, the pipe boots, the curb details around HVAC units. This is where craftsmanship truly lives or dies. Manufacturers produce prefabricated, injection-molded corners and boots for a reason. They are perfectly formed and create a near-foolproof seal. But they cost more than just folding a piece of membrane on site, a technique often called a pig's ear. David's contractor saved about $50 on every corner by having his guys fold them by hand. The problem? A hand-folded corner has multiple seams and a point of weakness right where water wants to get in. It relies entirely on the skill and patience of the installer. One sloppy fold, one unclean surface, and you've created a direct path for water into your building. When the manufacturer's inspector saw those hand-folded corners, he knew immediately that the crew was cutting costs and ignoring best practices. The warranty was dead. The final insult was the substrate. Before you lay down any new roofing material, the deck beneath has to be perfectly clean and dry. The spec is non-negotiable on this. David's crew was in a hurry. They swept the deck, but they didn't use a power blower or vacuum. They left behind fine dust and debris. They laid the insulation boards right over it. Trapped under the new membrane, that harmless-looking dust acted like millions of tiny ball bearings, preventing the new roof from properly adhering. Worse, a small amount of moisture was trapped. Over time, under the heat of the sun, that moisture vaporized, creating pressure and forming a blister, a bubble in the roof that would eventually crack and fail. David never stood a chance. His contractor didn't make one mistake. He made a dozen. He chose speed over precision, savings over security. He gambled that his work would look good enough to get the check, and he won. David was left with a failing 5-figure roof and a worthless piece of paper. He had to pay a second time for a different, truly reputable contractor to come in, tear off the brand new roof, and do it right from the very beginning. The most expensive problem isn't the cost of a good roof. It's the cost of paying for the same roof twice. So how do you prevent this from happening to you? You have to shift your thinking. You are not just buying a roof. You are buying a legally enforceable multi-decade insurance policy from a multi-billion-dollar company. The contractor is simply the authorized agent to execute the terms of that policy. You must verify, not trust. First, demand a pre-installation conference. This is non-negotiable. You, your contractor's project manager, and a technical representative from the manufacturer must all be in the same room, or on the same video call, before a single tool is unloaded. In this meeting, you go over the project-specific specifications line by line. You confirm the fastener patterns for your exact wind zone. You confirm the approved seam welding techniques. You confirm the use of prefabricated accessories. Get it all on the record. Second, ask for interim inspections from the manufacturer's rep. Don't wait until the end of the job to find out there's a problem. A good manufacturer and a confident contractor will welcome this. They should have a rep come out when the first section is down to ensure everything is starting correctly, and again at key milestones. This keeps the crew honest and catches mistakes before they get covered up and multiplied across 10,000 square feet. Finally, consider hiring your own advocate, a third-party registered roof consultant. Yes, it's an added expense, but this person works for you. They speak the language. They know every trick, every shortcut. They will be your eyes on the roof, performing their own inspections and ensuring that every single detail of the manufacturer's specification is followed to the letter. They are your insurance policy for your insurance policy. because getting that warranty certificate in your hand isn't the end of the process. It's the beginning, and it's only valuable if the work beneath it is flawless. But even with the perfect installation and a valid warranty, there's a mistake that can happen long before anyone ever climbs a ladder. It's the mistake of choosing the wrong weapon for the fight, of picking a roofing system that is fundamentally mismatched for your building, your business, and your climate. TPO, PVC, EPDM, modified bitumen. They are not interchangeable, and choosing the wrong one can set you up for a 20-year headache. Let's unpack that 20-year headache, because it's not just a figure of speech. It's a slow-burn financial drain. It's the recurring leak that damages inventory. It's the sky-high energy bill you can't figure out. It's the premature failure that forces you to re-roof a decade early. All of this stems from a single fundamental misunderstanding, that a roof is just a roof. It's not. It's a highly specialized, engineered system designed for a specific set of environmental and operational challenges. And when you install the wrong system, you are essentially trying to solve a complex math problem with the wrong formula. You will never get the right answer. Let's start with the most common system you'll see today, especially in the southern half of the United States. TPO, or thermoplastic polyolefin. This is the bright white single-ply membrane that has taken the market by storm over the last 2 decades. Its rise to fame is no accident. TPO's primary selling point is its incredible reflectivity. That brilliant white surface acts like a giant mirror, bouncing the sun's brutal UV rays back into the atmosphere instead of absorbing them as heat. For a building owner in Arizona, Florida, or Texas, this isn't a small feature. It's a massive operational advantage. It can dramatically lower the roof's surface temperature, which in turn reduces the workload on your HVAC systems, leading to tangible, measurable savings on your energy bills month after month. It's also relatively lightweight, cost-effective, and its seams are heat-welded, creating a monolithic, waterproof sheet across your entire roof. Sounds perfect, right? Well, the mistake is thinking it's perfect for everyone. Early formulations of TPO had issues with long-term UV degradation and consistency. While the technology has improved immensely, its track record is still measured in decades, not generations. And that heat-welded seam, its greatest strength, is also its biggest potential weakness. It requires a highly skilled technician with perfectly calibrated equipment to get it right. An imperfect weld is an invisible ticking time bomb, a future leak just waiting for the right thermal cycle to pop it open. So, is TPO a bad roof? Absolutely not. It's a fantastic roof, for the right building in the right climate installed by the right crew. Now let's travel north to the climates of Ohio, Michigan, or Colorado, where the playbook changes entirely. Here you're more likely to find the old-school champion, EPDM, which stands for ethylene propylene diene monomer. To most people, it's just the black rubber roof. For decades, EPDM was the undisputed king of flat roofing, and for good reason. Its superpower is durability and flexibility. This stuff is incredibly resilient. It can handle massive temperature swings, from sub-zero winter nights to scorching summer afternoons, without becoming brittle. It has fantastic resistance to hail, which is a building owner's nightmare in the Midwest. And its track record is undeniable. There are 40-year-old EPDM roofs still performing today. It's the proven, battle-tested veteran. But it has its own set of trade-offs. That classic black color, while great for helping melt snow in the winter, absorbs a tremendous amount of heat in the summer, potentially driving up your cooling costs. And unlike TPO's welded seams, EPDM seams have traditionally been glued together with adhesives. This is the system's Achilles heel. Over time, those adhesives can degrade under UV exposure and thermal stress, leading to seam failure. While modern seam tapes have improved this dramatically, it's still a different technology from a true weld. Choosing EPDM in Miami might be a mistake because of the heat absorption. But choosing TPO in a hail-prone area of Colorado could be an even bigger one, if you value impact resistance over energy savings. It's a calculated trade-off. But what if your building isn't just an empty warehouse or an office park? What if it's a restaurant, a food processing plant, a manufacturing facility that vents chemicals or oils onto the roof? Now we enter the world of PVC, or polyvinyl chloride. PVC is the premium, high-performance single-ply membrane. Think of it as TPO's tougher, more specialized cousin. Its defining characteristic is its exceptional resistance to things that would destroy other roofing systems. Grease from a restaurant's kitchen exhaust, chemicals from industrial vents, animal fats, jet fuel. PVC stands up to it all. It's also inherently fire-resistant, which is a major code requirement and safety feature in many applications. Like TPO, it typically comes in reflective white for energy efficiency and features heat-welded seams for a strong monolithic surface. So why isn't every roof PVC? 2 reasons: cost and cold. PVC is generally more expensive upfront than TPO or EPDM. It's a premium product with a premium price tag. And while formulations have improved, it can be less flexible than EPDM in deep freeze conditions. Installing a PVC roof on a simple storage facility in a mild climate is probably over-engineering, a mistake in capital allocation. But installing a TPO roof on a restaurant, where grease will drip onto it and slowly turn that TPO membrane into a brittle, gooey mess? That's a catastrophic mistake that will lead to total roof failure. The system must match the building's function. Finally, we have the heavyweight brawler of the group, modified bitumen. This isn't a single-ply membrane. It's a multi-ply system, an evolution of the old tar and gravel roofs. Think of it as layers of asphalt, reinforced with polyester or fiberglass, and often topped with reflective granules. Its undisputed advantage is sheer toughness, puncture resistance. If you have a roof with an army of HVAC units, satellite dishes, and vents that require constant service and heavy foot traffic from maintenance crews, modified bitumen is your fortress. Drop tools, heavy boots, frequent traffic, it just shrugs it all off. A single-ply membrane is, by definition, a single-ply. One deep cut from a careless technician can compromise the entire system. A multi-ply modbit system has built-in redundancy. A puncture in the top layer doesn't mean an immediate leak. The downside? It's heavy. The building structure has to be able to support the significant additional weight. And the most common installation method involves using an open flame torch to adhere the layers, which presents a significant fire risk if the crew is not exceptionally well trained and diligent. Choosing a lightweight single-ply for a roof that sees more foot traffic than a city sidewalk is a mistake. You're guaranteeing a future filled with patch jobs and leak calls. Do you see the pattern here? There is no best roof. There is only the best roof for you. The colossal mistake isn't just picking one from a list. The mistake is the failure to conduct this very analysis. It's letting a contractor walk onto your property and say, "We only install TPO," without ever asking what your building is used for, what your biggest climate concerns are, or how much foot traffic you expect. The mistake is looking at 3 quotes and immediately jumping on the lowest price, without understanding that the $20,000 you save today on a mismatched system could cost you $100,000 in repairs, damages, and premature replacement down the road. You're not just buying a product. You're investing in a solution to a complex set of variables: your climate, your building's function, your energy goals, your maintenance schedule, and your budget. So the real takeaway here is to change the way you even approach the conversation. Before you get a price, before you look at samples, you need to demand a proper diagnosis. A world-class contractor won't start by selling you a roof. They'll start by asking you questions. They'll perform a deep dive into your specific situation to determine which system, or systems, are even viable candidates. The mistake is accepting a one-size-fits-all sales pitch for what is fundamentally a custom-fit problem. But here's the frightening part. Even if you do all this work, even if you navigate this complex matrix of options and perfectly select the ideal roofing system for your building, your budget, and your climate, you can still end up with a complete and total disaster. Because the single most important factor in a roof's success has nothing to do with the material itself. It's determined by the one final critical mistake that building owners make over and over again. And it's the one that can turn $1 million investment into a worthless pile of debris overnight. This final mistake is the silent killer of commercial roofing projects across America. It's the reason 2 identical buildings, with identical TPO roofs installed in the same month, can have wildly different fates. One stands strong for 30 years, a fortress against the elements. The other fails in less than 3, causing catastrophic damage and financial ruin. The mistake isn't about materials or methods. It's about mindset. It's about focusing so intensely on the what, the type of membrane, the R value of the insulation, and the how much, the bottom line price, that you completely neglect the single most important factor: the who. The third and most devastating mistake you can make during a commercial roofing installation is choosing the wrong contractor by using the wrong criteria. It's valuing a cheap bid over proven competence. Let me tell you about a man named David. David owned a mid-sized distribution center in the Midwest, a thriving business he'd built from the ground up. His building's roof, a 20-year-old EPDM system, was was at the end of its life. David was a smart guy. He did his homework. He read articles, watched videos just like this one, and decided on a top-of-the-line, 80mm TPO membrane from a major manufacturer. He knew he needed a specific R value for his insulation to lower his energy bills. He had his what figured out perfectly. Then, he moved on to the how much. He did what everyone tells you to do. He got 3 bids. The first bid was high, coming from a large, well-known firm in the city. The second bid was suspiciously low, from a guy with a new truck and a brand new website. And the third bid, from a company we'll call Proline Roofing, was right in the middle. It felt comfortable, felt reasonable. The salesman from Proline was slick. He showed David a glossy brochure, promised to use the exact materials David specified, and even had a few references who gave lukewarm but acceptable reviews. David, feeling like he'd done his due diligence, signed the contract. He'd avoided the highest price and the lowest price. He felt like he'd made the smart, fiscally responsible choice. What David didn't know was that he had just signed the death warrant for his business. The Proline crew showed up and the work began. To David, everything looked fine. Trucks were moving, people were on the roof, and the new white membrane started to cover the old black one. But David couldn't see the details. He couldn't see that the crew was using a generic, cheaper bonding adhesive instead of the manufacturer-specified one because it saved them $10,000. He couldn't see that the laborers weren't trained technicians, but day laborers paid cash under the table, and their seam welds were inconsistent. Some were scorched, some were underheated. He couldn't see that they were using the wrong type of fasteners for his specific roof deck, or that they were skipping entire rows of fasteners to save time and money, compromising the wind uplift rating of the entire system. He couldn't see any of this. All he saw was a new white roof. And when Proline was done, they handed him a piece of paper they called a 10-year warranty, collected their final check, and disappeared. For 18 months, everything was fine. Then came a storm. It wasn't a tornado, it wasn't a hurricane. It was just a severe Midwestern thunderstorm with 60-mile-per-hour winds, the kind of storm that happens a few times every single year. But for David's brand new roof, it was a death sentence. The improperly welded seams acted like a zipper. The wind caught one small corner, and because the fastener pattern was wrong and the adhesion was weak, the roof began to peel. In minutes, a 50,000 square foot section of membrane was ripped from the building and thrown into the parking lot like a discarded tissue. Rain poured directly onto the insulation, which acted like a sponge, and then through the roof deck into his warehouse. It drenched millions of dollars of electronics inventory. It shorted out his server room. Destroyed his business. When David frantically called Proline Roofing, the number was disconnected. The address on their brochure was a P.O. box. The company had dissolved and reformed under a new name, a classic tactic of what we call fly-by-night contractors. The warranty they gave him was worthless. His insurance company denied a significant portion of the claim, citing faulty workmanship, which wasn't covered. David lost everything because he focused on the what and the how much, and completely failed to properly vet the who. David's story isn't an exaggeration. It happens every single day. The bid from the contractor is not just a price. It is a direct reflection of the quality, safety, and legitimacy of their entire operation. A significantly lower bid doesn't mean you're getting a deal. It means the contractor is cutting corners somewhere. They aren't cutting their own profit. They're cutting the quality of your materials. They're cutting the training of their labor. They're cutting corners on safety and insurance. They are transferring all of the risk from their company directly onto you, the building owner. So how do you avoid this? You have to fundamentally change how you vet a commercial roofer. The get 3 bids and pick the middle strategy is a recipe for disaster. You need a new checklist, a set of non-negotiable requirements. First, manufacturer certification. Do not just ask if they use products from GAF, Carlisle, Firestone, or Johns Manville. Ask if they are certified installers for that manufacturer, and at what level. Top-tier contractors have designations like Master Contractor or President's Club. This isn't just a fancy plaque. It means their employees have been factory trained. It means their work is periodically inspected by the manufacturer. And most importantly, it means they are one of the few who can offer you a true manufacturer's no-dollar limit, or NDL warranty. An NDL warranty is the gold standard. It means if the roof fails due to workmanship or materials, the manufacturer, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, not a guy with a truck, will pay whatever it costs to fix it. A contractor's warranty is only as good as the contractor. An NDL warranty is as good as the global corporation that backs it. If a contractor can't offer you an NDL warranty, they are not in the top tier. Period. Second, insurance and bonding. Don't just ask for a certificate of insurance. Ask to be named as an additional insured on their policy. Scrutinize the coverage amounts. A $1 million general liability policy is not enough for a major commercial project. Look for aggregate limits of $2 million or more, and a substantial umbrella policy on top of that. Ask about their bonding capacity. Bonding is essentially a performance guarantee from a third-party surety company. It ensures that if your contractor goes bankrupt or simply walks off the job, the surety company will step in and pay to have another contractor finish the project. A contractor with a low bonding capacity is a massive red flag. Third, labor. Ask this question directly. Will the people installing my roof be your direct, W-2 employees, covered by your workers' compensation insurance? Or will you be using subcontractors? The subcontractor shell game is a classic way for contractors to cut costs and shed liability. They hire a cheaper, often uninsured crew to do the actual work, while they just manage the contract. This puts you at enormous risk. If a subcontracted worker gets hurt on your property, they could end up suing you, the building owner. Always demand a crew of direct, trained, insured employees. Fourth, and this is one almost nobody asks, request their EMR or experience modification rate. The EMR is a number used by insurance companies to gauge the past cost of injuries and future chances of risk. A rating of 1.0 is the industry average. A number below 1.0 means their safety record is better than average. A number above 1.0 means they have a history of accidents and are considered a higher risk. A contractor who is proud of their safety culture will be happy to show you their EMR. A contractor with a high EMR not only runs an unsafe job site, but it's also a powerful indicator of a sloppy, unprofessional, and poorly managed company overall. If David had asked Proline Roofing for their manufacturer certification for an NDL warranty, for their EMR safety rating, and for a guarantee of no subcontractors, the conversation would have ended right there. He would have discovered they weren't certified, their safety record was poor, and their business model was built on using cheap, undocumented labor. He would have realized their middle-of-the-road bid wasn't a good value. It was a trap. The most expensive roof is the one you have to pay for twice. And sometimes, as David learned, it costs you a lot more than just a roof. It costs you everything. The price tag is the last thing you should look at, not the first. You have to verify the who before you ever even consider the how much, because the right team with the right training and the right credentials is the only thing that separates a 30-year asset from a ticking time bomb over your head. And that ticking time bomb, it doesn't have a visible countdown clock. Its timer is the next major rainstorm, the next heavy snow load, the next severe wind event. You don't know when it will go off, only that it was armed the day the wrong crew packed up their trucks and drove away. So let's bring this all home. Let's zoom out and look at the 3 catastrophic, yet entirely avoidable mistakes we've uncovered. Think of them as a 3-legged stool. If any one leg is weak, the whole thing collapses. The first mistake, the foundational error, was improper surface preparation. We talked about the crews who just show up and start rolling out new material over a dirty, damp, or structurally unsound deck. It's the original sin of a failed roofing project. It's the equivalent of building a skyscraper on a foundation of mud. It doesn't matter how advanced the materials are, how skilled the installers seem to be. If the surface they are bonding to is compromised, the entire system is compromised from day one. It's a guaranteed failure. A slow, creeping, delaminating failure that might not show itself for a year or two, long after the contractor's taillight warranty has expired. Remember, the bond between the substrate and the membrane is everything. It's the anchor. And you can't anchor a battleship with a paperclip stuck in sand. Proper cleaning, drying, and priming isn't an optional upsell. It is the non-negotiable price of entry for a roof that lasts. Ignoring this is like a surgeon deciding not to sterilize their instruments to save a few minutes. The initial result might look the same, but a deadly infection is already spreading beneath the surface. This leads directly to the second mistake, the one that compounds the first, ignoring manufacturer specifications. This is where arrogance and corner cutting converge to create a perfect storm of failure. Every single roofing system, whether it's TPO, EPDM, PVC, or Modbit, is a highly engineered product. The manufacturers have spent millions of dollars in research and development to figure out the exact temperature for a perfect heat weld, the precise number of fasteners per square foot for a given wind uplift zone, the specific adhesive that is chemically compatible with their membrane. These specifications aren't suggestions. They are the laws of physics and chemistry for that specific system. When a contractor decides they know better, when they use the wrong fastener, or stretch the adhesive to save a few bucks, or weld seams when it's too cold and damp, they are voiding the warranty in real time. They are snapping the engineered chain of performance link by link. They are taking a multi-million-dollar, scientifically designed system and turning it into a haphazard patchwork quilt with no integrity. Think about it. Would you let a mechanic put diesel in your gasoline engine because it was a little cheaper that day? Of course not. It would destroy the engine. Yet building owners across the country let contractors play fast and loose with chemical and mechanical specifications that are just as critical. The spec sheet is the roof's DNA. Alter it and you create a mutation, a weak point destined to fail. And that brings us to the final and most critical mistake. The one that truly governs all the others: hiring the wrong contractor. Because let's be honest, you, the building owner, aren't expected to be up on the roof checking the substrate moisture levels or verifying the torque on every fastener. You shouldn't have to. The first two mistakes, improper prep and ignoring specs, are almost always symptoms of this third, larger disease. Hiring the wrong contractor is the master error. It's the choice that makes all the other bad outcomes possible. The unqualified, lowball bidder is the one who is going to skip the prep work because it costs time and labor. They are the one who is going to ignore the manufacturer's specs because following them eats into their razor-thin profit margin. They are the ones who don't invest in the continuous manufacturer-certified training that teaches their crews why those specs are so important. They are the ones who don't carry the right insurance, leaving you exposed when their faulty work causes a catastrophic leak that ruins your inventory or shuts down your operations. This is why we spend so much time on this point. The decision about who does the work is infinitely more important than the decision about what the final price is. The cheap bid is an illusion. It's a mirage in the desert of facility management. It looks refreshing, but it's a trap. The real cost of a roof isn't the number on the initial proposal. The real cost is the initial price plus the cost of emergency repairs, plus the cost of interior damage, plus the cost of business interruption, plus the cost of litigation, plus the cost of ultimately tearing it all off and doing it again the right way 5 years later. When you add all that up, that cheap bid becomes the single most expensive decision you could have possibly made. So what's the common thread here? What ties these three mistakes together? It's the seductive, dangerous allure of the shortcut. The belief that you can get a 30-year result with a 30-day mindset. It doesn't work. Not in business, not in life, and certainly not in commercial roofing. Your roof is not a commodity. It's not like buying paper towels where the cheaper brand works just fine. It is a complex, integrated system that stands as the single most important guardian of your entire business asset. It is the shield. It protects your structure, your equipment, your inventory, and your people. Choosing a roofing partner is one of the most significant financial decisions a building owner or property manager will make. So make it with your eyes wide open. Do the diligence. Ask the hard questions. Check the certifications. Call the references. Visit their past job sites. Don't just get a bid. Conduct an interview. You are hiring a long-term partner for the protection of your asset, and I want to help you do that. I know this can feel overwhelming. That's why we've put together something to cut through the noise. It's our ultimate contractor vetting checklist. It's a simple, powerful guide with the exact questions you need to ask any potential roofing contractor. It covers everything from insurance verification and safety records to manufacturer certifications and training protocols. It will empower you to separate the true professionals from the pretenders in less than 15 minutes. It's completely free, and you can download it right now using the link in the description below. This isn't about us. It's about arming you with the knowledge to protect your investment, no matter who you choose to work with. Because when you do it right, when you insist on proper preparation, when you ensure manufacturer specs are followed to the letter, and when you partner with a top-tier, certified, and reputable contractor, something amazing happens. The worry disappears. The roof ceases to be a liability on your mind and becomes what it was always meant to be: a silent, steadfast, and reliable asset. You gain peace of mind. You gain budget certainty. You gain the freedom to focus on running your business, secure in the knowledge that you are protected by a shield that was built to last, not a time bomb set to fail. Your roof is too important to be a gamble. Make the right choice. Protect your investment.